welcome to Chisme del Cielo, where we talk about the only gossip we're sharing, the good news. I'm your host, Yahaira Valenzuela, and you guys, I'm so excited for today's episode because for the first time in podcast history, we have a guest on here.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So I'm going to let him introduce himself real quick, and then we'll get into the episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Yahaira. I'm Pablo. I'm 18 years old, and I'm really excited to be here and talking about the really important topic today.
And the really important topic is discernment. A really cool thing about Pablo is that we actually started our discernment journeys around the same time. So we've been able to kind of like walk with each other on these journeys. And I've been wanting to talk about discernment because I bring it up all the time. And I've been wanting to make a full episode for it. And I thought, who better than the person who's been kind of doing it with me in a way, right? So Pablo, tell us about your discernment journey.
It started, I'd say, around the end of my junior year. So I am still in, not junior year of college, junior year of high school. Yes,
Youngin.
I'm kind of, I'm pretty young. So at the end of my junior year last year, I was in a relationship, and it was going really well. I was taking it very serious, and but I kept feeling like the Lord calling me out of the relationship for some reason, and I was kind of like not. It wasn't like the right time. That's what I thought, because obviously I was going to be applying to college in the summer, and at the same time I was just thinking about my future with my girlfriend at the time, and what I was going to do next year, and just focusing on graduating. So it kind of felt very strange for like the Lord to be calling me out of that. But I really wanted to, focus on Him and my relationship with Him and trust in what He had for me. So I decided to end the relationship, and over the summer I was trying to be open to the Lord, and it was crazy because I thought it was kind of a cliche. After you break up with someone, people are like, "Oh, you're going to be a priest," and I'm sure for girls too, it's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go into the convent and stuff. So yeah, that was kind of a cliche that people started bringing it up to me, but it was actually the Lord planting seeds in my heart about it. So I would go to pray, and the Lord would kind of bring up the priesthood and seminary, which was like strange. I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And actually, one of the biggest things that happened over the summer is I was invited out of like the blue from this priest that was helping out at my parish at the time. He told me about the sermon retreat for high schoolers at the seminary, which was literally happening the weekend after. So that was amazing. So I went to the retreat, and the Lord bore a lot of fruit in that retreat. Then after the sermon retreat, 2 weeks later, I went to AYC.
What's AYC?
Oh, so it's like, do you know the
Archdiocesan Youth Conference?
So it's like 2,000 high schoolers come to downtown Houston, and it's like conferences. It's almost like a mini Seek, if y'all have heard of that. And yeah, it was amazing. So when I was there, it was like the Saturday of the retreat, and a seminarian that I had met previously, he actually just like I bumped into him, and he took me to meet Father Richard, which is like the vocations director for the Archdiocese. And then I also met my spiritual director at the same retreat. Little plug,
shout out,
Father David Michael Moses, which was crazy for me too, because I'd watched his videos and stuff online. But yeah, the Lord just like kind of worked in that retreat in a way that I didn't kind of have to do anything. He just like made the path easy, at least to put the people I needed at the time. So that's when my like official discernment, like I really started taking it serious. So that would have been last July. And yeah, since then I've been just trying to be open to the Lord and to His call.
Yeah, that's awesome. And actually, fun fact, I also started discerning after AYC,
Yes.
which is, it's just a little quick side story. It's so funny to me because I was chaperoning. So like, it's a conference for youth, and I just remember like feeling a call, while I was there in adoration with all these high schoolers. And I remember I was like laughing at myself. I'm like, this is so goofy because this wasn't even meant for me. But God is for everybody. He works in funny ways. He's so crazy. Funny. Yeah. So yeah, like when I say we started together, I literally mean like we started discerning like the same time. But yeah, no, that's awesome, Pablo. I remember when Pablo first like told me about like the whole situation with a girlfriend and everything. I just thought it was like funny, not funny, but it was just amazing to me how somebody so young could already be having these thoughts. But that's God, like that's how He works.
Yeah.
So it's just been so incredible to get to hear about everything, after being there from the start. Speaking of starting, I know when I started discerning, or when I decided that I wanted to discern, I was just kind of like, I don't even know what discernment is, like I was a little confused. I didn't really know how to start or what I should do, what my first step should be, just because like growing up Catholic, I never really thought about. I mean, I knew things, but I didn't know things,
Yeah.
and that was just one of those things that like discernment was very much just like, oh, you want to be a priest, so I guess you'll do that.
Yeah.
But like nobody ever said, oh, you have to discern to do that, or like you have
Yeah.
to discern to do this. So like, I don't know, what's discernment?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I think I had the same thing when I started like discerning. I would kind of always thought the same thing, like, oh, discernment's only for people that aren't getting married, and since I'm getting married, it's whatever, I don't need to discern.
Neutral.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But no, that's actually not what discernment is. And I found when you find out what discernment is, it's something really beautiful. So discernment is actually, it's not really just for your vocation, but anything can be discerned. So discernment is defined as like, it's not, when you're discerning something, it's not between something bad and something good. So to give an example, you can't discern, should I go to church or should I go clubbing and commit mortal sins?
Right.
That's not discernment, because there's an obvious answer, do not commit mortal sins. But discernment is between two good things, and you're trying to ask God, trying to know his will as to what good thing he's calling you to. So, for example, for me right now, it would be either marriage and going to college, or being open to seminary and in the future becoming a priest. So both things are equally good, but there's a greater good that God calls each of us to, and it's the same for women,
Yeah.
and whatever vocation that may be. It doesn't just have to be religious life. It could be consecrated single. And there's many different vocation types.
Yeah. Discernment 101, actually, like a really basic rule of discernment is actually that you're always discerning. I think as Christians, we should be making all of our decisions based off of God's will. It should always be his will, never ours. And so discernment is something that even if you are in the seminary or you are in the process of, joining a religious order or whatever, you're still discerning like all throughout that time. And you guys have probably heard so many stories of like people leaving the seminary or whatever, and that's because you're always discerning. And like Pablo said, like you should be discerning everything, not just your vocation. I think since I started discerning, I feel like I've learned so much about what discernment is, what it should look like, things like that. And one of the, I think, most fascinating things that I know we talked about, like we have to talk about this in the episode, was St. Ignatius of Loyola's rules for discernment. It was actually crazy because one of the things that he talks about is consolation and desolation, and learning what those were was played such a pivotal like role in my own discernment journey. But before I get into that, I think we obviously have to tell you guys what consolation and desolation is, because like I said, I didn't know until a couple months ago. So I don't know about you, but
yeah, it's really helpful. If you don't mind, I can kind of get into it.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I guess I'll start with consolation. So, or I can just kind of go both. Yeah, consolation and desolation. There are moments in like the spiritual life in which kind of you're feeling closeness or farness from God, is like a simple way to put it. So in consolation, you feel an interior joy that elevates your relationship to God, and or like an interior peace that like is also directed towards God. So it's not like, oh, I'm sitting in front of a sunset, I'm peaceful. It's like I'm praying, or God shows me something, and it literally like it brings my heart to Him. Like it's a clear sign from the Lord. And desolation can be moments of when you're feeling like really far away from God. Like maybe you're praying all day or like every day, and you're going to mass, but at mass you feel frustrated. You wake up that day and you feel really tempted from the previous sins that you've been struggling with. And learning these rules is actually really important, because you realize that it's okay. Like if you're feeling far from God, you're not like, it's not all over. It's not like, the Lord's left you forever. That's not what consolation and desolation is. When you learn these things, they really, really help in your spiritual journey. And like Yahara was saying, it's not, something that's only when you're discernment. It's literally like throughout your spiritual life, you will experience moments of consolation and desolation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because I didn't. So I've mentioned this before, but if you're new here, so I with the archdiocese, I kind of with the Office of Vocations, I joined a discernment group when I started discerning because, like I said, I just didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do, and I saw that they were about to start the like program that they do, and I was like, oh, perfect, like perfect timing, God's timing, right? And so I joined the discernment group, and it literally, we did not talk about consolation and desolation until the last like retreat that we had. So I was already 4 months into my discernment, 4 months into this, and I'm over here like, oh yeah, like God's calling me to this, you know? And
Yeah.
we learned about this, and they kind of like sent us off to do like a consolations and desolations list. So they like a T-chart type thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've done one of those.
Yeah. And they were like, so like reflect on your discernment so far and your past year, whatever, you know, and write down like all the consolations you've like all the moments of consolation that you felt and all the moments of desolation that you felt, and you know, reflect on that. So I'm sitting there making my T-chart, and it hit me that my decision to even start discerning, I thought it was like, because you know, I'm 24, I have a career, like I finished college, like I'm like, yeah, I'm an adult, like I know what I'm doing, right? And so I thought that my discernment was coming at a time that, you know, whereas you were like a little confused, I was like, no, I'm ready for this, like I'm doing it for the right reasons, whatever. And so I'm making my list, and I was like, oh, so as it turns out, actually, my decision to start discerning actually came during a time of desolation. And obviously, obviously at the time, I didn't know that that's what I was doing. But like looking back and reflecting and making that T-chart, that dang T-chart, just had to like stop me in my tracks because I was like, whoa. And the number one thing that people will tell you, or like it's true, is that you cannot make a decision during a time of desolation because, you know, like Pablo said, like in those times, you're obviously feeling a little distant from God. And if the whole point of discerning and making these decisions is for them to be like Christ-centered and for it to be like his will and his voice talking to you and telling you to do these things, you can't be doing that if you're distant from him, right? So it was just really funny because, you know, I'm 4 months into my discernment and I'm like, all of a sudden, everything I thought I knew, scratch that. Like maybe that wasn't God after all. Like, I don't know. And so, yeah, that was like just such like a big turning point. I remember after that, I was like, well, like, guess I'm gonna start dating again. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then other things happened later, and I was like, just kidding. I'm back on my, I'm locked in. Yeah, I'm back on track. But yeah, that was just a really like crazy thing, and that's why I think too, like, it's so important that, well, for one, everybody should discern their vocation. Like, obviously, you're discerning your whole life. But for sure, everybody should discern your vocation because I know both of us, I think we can agree, we thought we were going to get married. And maybe we will. I don't know. We don't know what God wants. We don't know. Maybe we will. But like right now, it's just funny because if you had asked me even the 6 months ago since we started
probably
discerning.
Like 6 months ago. 6. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Okay. 6 or the number that comes before 8 months ago. Sorry. I would have told you like absolutely not. Like I'm gonna get married. I'm gonna have children, right? Yeah. And so like I wouldn't have gone into it, and I'm glad that I did. But I also, I mean, you know, it's all God's perfect timing. But I'm like, wow, I really wish that I would have been a little more educated because I feel like those 4 months like could have gone a lot differently if I had known what this was, right? So that's why we wanted to kind of take some time in today's episode to talk about what discernment even is, because again, it's something that everybody should do. You should discern your vocation, but I think knowing what discernment means and knowing what it should look like is really important before you even start, because if you don't know, I mean, not that there's a right or wrong way to do it, but it helps to kind of understand it a little better. So
yeah, just kind of to touch on that, like I guess like there's moments when you'll experience desolation, which is like your farness from God. And a lot of the times, if you're living a virtuous life, it's because like God's, he's not the author of desolation. He's the author of all consolation. The enemy is the one that does desolation, but the Lord permits for you to fall into desolation. So maybe like to prove your faith, you know, to strengthen you for trials, you know, because, you know, through trials we learn how to, you know, carry our cross closer to Christ. You know, we can connect those sufferings to Christ as well. So That's kind of what desolation is. And, he's the one that'll bring you out of that. But the most important thing St. Ignatius says is like when you're in desolation, those spiritual habits, which
Which we're about to
we're about to get
get
into, those spiritual habits, continue to like do them. Like don't fall away from doing your spiritual habits, because if you do, you're just letting the enemy win, basically. But that's what reconciliation is for. So, but that's not an excuse.
But yeah. So you're mentioning spiritual habits, right? So that's actually kind of the next thing that we wanted to get into, because obviously now we've discussed how we started to discern. We've talked about what discernment is. So I think obviously the next practical thing to talk about is the practical things, right? So like what discernment should actually look like in real life. So you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing?
So I guess when I started my discernment journey, a lot of things that people told me, like, seminarians, priests, holy people around me, was just like creating a habitual prayer life. So what that looks like is like, instead of giving God like your last like 30 minutes of the day, give God like work him into the actual schedule. So we all have a schedule that we have to do every day. For me, it's going to school and then, going to work and stuff. But how can I fit God into my routine? So, I started waking up earlier, like an hour before. I usually used to wake up to pray, to do a rosary, and to read through scripture, to just like set my mindset open to God, and like, keep my heart open to him, and just be obedient to him in that. Another one is like praying the rosary. I try to do a daily rosary. I don't do it every day, but I try to incorporate it when I have time. And yeah, just like morning and night prayer. And other things like going to mass, and receiving the sacraments. Those are all major things that help in your discernment, because not only does it show obedience to God, but the Lord bears graces through our obedience, not because of what we've done, just because that's he chooses to love us through that. So yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah. And this is like, we're not even just saying this because this is us personally, but genuinely, like, yeah, same thing. Everyone that I talked to, they said the same thing. And even like I said, my discernment group, the first class, like they were like, okay, well, you have homework, and like it's not actually homework, but like it's homework, right? Yeah. Like if you're not creating these spiritual habits and you're not like incorporating him into your life, then how are you expecting to hear his voice?
Yeah.
Sounds a little dramatic, but like straight up, that's how it is. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I literally second everything you said. Like, just, yeah.
Yeah. Another one is like huge one for me is silent prayer.
Oh.
Silent prayer is such a powerful style of prayer. It's literally like it sounds. It's what it is. Like you just sit there in silence, and it can be tedious, and sometimes even the spiritual habits can be tedious. But when you sit in silence, especially in adoration, I really recommend going to adoration at least once a week.
I second that.
Yeah, for an hour. That has been a huge blessing. But yeah, sitting in silence is like how you can hear God's voice. I remember my spiritual director telling me in one of our sessions that God, or like one of our first sessions, he was like, God's number one voice is silence. So it's definitely very powerful.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like that's probably the hardest thing to do, because we're so busy and we live such busy lives, and we have so much going on, so many things on our mind. And so it is like so hard to be able to sit there in silence. But like Pablo said, you can't hear God if you're not giving him the silence, like to be heard, right?
Like the space.
Yeah. And so that honestly has been one of the hardest things that I've done, but also like, I don't know, it's just once you can't get it, but it's been one of the hardest things to do. But it's definitely like he said, like I highly recommend it because it's a game changer. Like you literally can't it's not enough to just say you're discerning, or it's not enough to just say like, yeah, I mean, I'm listening, but like, are you really giving him the opportunity to be heard? Probably not. It's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah.
But speaking of tips, another thing that I feel like I heard from literally every single like consecrated woman that I talked to, every single priest that I talked to, every single like sister that I talked to, every single married couple that I talked to, like when I tell you every single person that I have talked to about like discernment and just like being able to hear God's like voice, every single one of them has said that the most important like piece of advice that they can give you is to love more. And I think like that was something that was really hard for me because I'm like, I'm not mean. It's just not in my nature to be like I don't know. I'm just not, well, I am a human, and it's very difficult for us to love people sometimes. But that, yeah. Also in my discernment retreat group, sorry, Father Richard, the first thing he did was give us a talk about charity. He said, charity is the queen of virtue, and I've been quoting that ever since because I was like, yeah, charity is the queen of virtue. But he said, every other virtue will fall behind it, right? If you are loving more, everything else will just come so much more naturally and more like easier to you. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like after that, I was just like, it was heavy on the forefront of my mind to just like give people grace, to like love more. So I'm like, that's the greatest commandment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah,
I was really thinking the same thing. Like the two greatest commandments, love God and love your neighbor. So definitely, loving other people is a way in which God touches you. I think a lot of times, especially when concerning like charity, it can be very easy. Just like, oh, let me be nice to the person, or let me be nice to the other, the person I'm interacting with. But it's truly like setting aside like your own perception of what you want the person to be, and it's just loving them for who they are, like for them being brothers and sisters in Christ, or being a creation of God, right? So it's just loving them authentically, and allowing yourself to be loved like through brokenness. I think is really, really important, because the Lord works through that. He works he works a lot through that.
Yeah, heavy on the allowing yourself to be loved too, because I think like we are broken, obviously, and I think that it's very easy for us to fall into this like looking at ourselves through our brokenness, and so it's like, well, I don't deserve this or I don't deserve that, which is a whole other conversation, a whole other topic for discussion. Yeah. But definitely, yeah, like I think it does also start there, because you're also a child of God and His creation, and again, how can you expect to hear Him if you can't even like love yourself? I don't know, that sounds funny, that sounds like corny,
no,
but like,
no, I know what you're saying. No, it's like allowing God to also love you through the discernment, right? Because it's like when He heals those wounds and stuff, you can start hearing more clearly His voice, because it's like you don't have those wounds of like the enemy attacking you all the time, or those lies that the enemy always tries to tell us, like we're not good enough, that you're not made for that. But God is calling us all to sainthood and to our specific vocation. So something else I want to touch on is like when you're allowing yourself to be loved by the Lord and you're being open to Him in discernment, I think this is really important too. Is like God's not going to call you to something that isn't the greatest good for your life. So like He's made you for a specific purpose, like all of us. And if you're open to His vocation, like to what He made you to be, you're going to be the most happiest in that vocation, which is something very interesting that I heard a lot of people tell me, because I was like, oh, like God just wants me to be a priest and I'm just going to like not like it. Right. But God is not calling you like in contradiction to what you're made to be. He's calling you to be the best version of yourself in that vocation. So like in that vocation, you can serve Him the greatest way that He's calling you to. And it's like the happiest, not the happiest, but the most fulfilling vocation for you is the one that He's calling you to.
Yeah, and to kind of add to that, actually, one of the things that I heard too is like, obviously He wants to see us all in heaven. Obviously, like we're made for holiness, right? To be saints, for sainthood. And what I heard, how I heard it said once was too, is like where He's calling you, like that vocation is going to be your easiest way to heaven. Like, not to say that life is going to be easy, but like obviously if that's the path that you're meant to be on, it's going to be a lot easier, and you'll probably face, unfortunately, like a lot more hardships if you choose to ignore that call and go a different route. And I also wanted to kind of piggyback off of that. It's like it's not to say that like, I mean, if you're giving God the opportunity to talk to you, then ideally you're going to hear Him and listen to where He's calling you to. But say now if you're like, well, I don't want to do that though, I still want to get married, so I'm just going to ignore that and go get married. That's not to say you can't get to heaven, right? Like it's not to say like, well, you ignored Him and now it's going to be, you're going to live a horrible life and you're not going to get there. No, like Pablo was saying earlier, every vocation is beautiful. Every vocation is good. They're all good options. It's just a matter of like, giving God the opportunity to tell you what's meant for you to listen, and so that way that it's like easier and just more fulfilling for you on throughout life. So
like what's the greatest good He's calling me to is the question.
They're all good, but
what's the greatest
good?
Yeah, exactly.
Period. So I feel like we've been talking a lot about things that people have said to us, right? And you things that people have said. So I feel like one of the most everything that I've learned in my discernment has been so important and life changing. I'm like, one of the most important things. They're all important, but I think another great thing that I learned was like, you don't discern by yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like God will, Pablo said he was getting signs, like people were planting seeds, right? Like God will speak to you through others. Yeah. And so one of the like special things, and this isn't just, well, I mean, you're always discerning, but it's not even just while you're discerning your vocation. I think having a spiritual director is incredible at all times. Yeah. But spiritual direction, let's talk about spiritual direction.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So spiritual direction is like when you seek a person that's, they're trained for this, like they go to the school and they study spiritual direction. Mm-hmm. And so basically it's, you do sessions with them. It's usually once a month. And basically you tell them about your prayer life. You tell them about yourself, what you're going through at the time, and what is coming up in your prayers. And they basically, like it sounds like, they direct they direct your discernment. They direct your prayers. They tell you what things could be consolation, what things could be desolation, and what things are sticking out to them in like what you're telling them, and what to focus your prayer life on. So it's really, really helpful because it's people that are holier than like people that are holier than you, and people that are I guess more mature in their faith, so they can guide you into kind of direct the voice of God, because sometimes we hear a lot of voices when we pray, and some of the times it could be from the enemy even. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hate to make this comparison because I don't think it's the same thing, but I feel like for someone who doesn't know anything about anything, it's a pretty safe comparison to make, but you can essentially think of it kind of like therapy, but like spiritual.
Yeah, spiritual.
So therapy. Yeah, like spiritual therapy. So it's not like you're not like trauma dumping on them. Like that's not, you should see a therapist for that. But like they do help you kind of break down your prayer life and like things that God is telling you, and they'll kind of help you just discern more discernment. Yeah. They'll help you discern like what is from God and what's not. But it's definitely been like one of the most helpful things, because I feel like all of my like big revelations have been made when I'm talking to my spiritual director. And sometimes, honestly, like she didn't even have to say anything, but it just from talking it out with someone, like you kind of answer your own questions. So it's just been really helpful. Even I remember one of my first meetings with my spiritual director, she literally told me that she's like, I was over here going on this whole rant about how it was like, and then this happened, and then I was like going down this like rabbit hole, and when I stopped talking, she literally was like, have you considered maybe not talking? And I was like, oh. Period. Yeah. And I was like, oh, you're right. You're right. And that was like, I don't know, after that, like, I don't know if it was from embarrassment or what, but I was just like, no, you're right. Now I'm going to just be quiet just because she said to.
I'm going to listen.
So yeah, I was like, I'm going to listen. And it helps. We talked about silent prayer. Like you have to listen. But yeah, like sometimes it's like the silliest things, but having someone to kind of direct your thoughts and your prayer and things like that, like, is really helpful.
No, definitely. I 100% agree. Spiritual direction has definitely changed my life. And people that, it's not even like Yahara said, it's not just for when you're discerning vocation. Everyone should have a spiritual director, I feel.
Right. The final thing that we kind of talking about was just having a virtuous lifestyle. So like what does that even look like?
Yeah. That's great. I think this one is, again, a really important one. All things are important. But on hand with having a spiritual director, it's living a virtuous life. Because it's going to sound like rude, but if you're continually falling back into mortal sin and like, you're cutting off your relationship with God, and so it's going to be very difficult to discern your vocation. Not impossible, but more difficult. So definitely it's important to build virtuous habits. And the strongest way to do that is receiving the sacraments regularly. So for me, it's, when I have free time in the afternoon, going to daily mass. They recommend, or my spiritual director recommends that I go, 2 or 3 times a week. So outside of Sunday, that'd be 2 more. And then, going to adoration, like we talked about previously, like adoration for at least an hour once a week is super powerful. I guess reconciliation is a really, really important one. Even if you're not, committing mortal sins frequently, it's really good to, just go in and confess your venial sins, because, we all fail in different ways. So it can just kind of help bring back your spiritual kind of reinforcement with the Lord. Yeah, and those are the key ones, and mass. Yeah, the keyest one
The
is mass.
keyest,
The
the
keyest
keyest word is
one, yes,
mass.
is mass.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's, I mean, anyone will tell you that, even if you're not discerning your vocation, like practicing the sacraments regularly, or like receiving the sacraments
Yes.
regularly, practicing, receiving the sacraments regularly is just key for anyone. Again,
Yeah.
like we're called to holiness, we're called to be saints. Like we can't do that if we're not
Yeah.
if we're not doing the basic, but
Yeah.
um,
Receiving Jesus.
right. So yeah.
And I think another one that's really important is not only like receiving the sacraments, but how do we live a virtuous life?
Mhm.
So we kind of touched earlier on, building spiritual habits, and I think that's really, really important because that's how we continue to like, or at least for me, it's how I've continued to stay with God throughout like different trials because my day can look different, and I can be burdened by different school projects or having a lot of work. It fluctuates every week, but if I am set on like, okay, this is my prayer time with the Lord, then that will continue to like allow the Lord to speak to me and to work in those days, even when we're really busy. So I think that's super important.
Absolutely. Yeah, and even just again circling back to the loving more, this idea of like charity is the queen of virtue, and I'm going to
Yeah,
say that for the rest of my life. But definitely, like if I could recommend starting anywhere, it would just be trying to love people more, just showing them grace, because God shows you grace, so why would you not offer that to other people? And it could be like, I guess just for like the practicality of it, it could be the smallest things. Father Richard, something that, oh my gosh, I feel like Father Richard changed my life,
we're
guys.
quoting. No, he changed my. Yeah,
He
we're
changed my life.
great guy. We need to
Father Richard.
be.
But one of the things that stuck with me the most when he gave his little talk on charity was that he said, it could be the smallest thing. Like literally, if you're like going to mass on Sunday, right, and you're getting there super early, park in the back. Like leave the front parking spot open for somebody who's running late. Granted, someone else is probably going to take it, but you did your act, right? Like you did that for someone. And so just like the smallest things, and I just feel like Father Richard changed my life because I feel like ever since that talk, like I feel like I just have so much more love, and that sounds so like corny, but genuinely like living my life that way has just been life changing. Who would have thought? Love more. But yeah, and like I said, like every other virtue will just come after. It'll
Yeah.
follow. And so if you want to start anywhere, start with love.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we can circle back to what discernment is. What are we going through now in our discernment? Yeah.
What are you going through now?
Okay. Well, well, I kind of touched on earlier that I was, discerning throughout summer, and I was continuing to be open to, God's voice. And I've actually gone to another retreat recently. I went out in December to the seminary, and it was like a 5-day silent retreat. I recommend going on a silent retreat. Wow, life changing again.
Yes, no,
It
yes,
is
I
so
second
life
that.
changing. Because literally you're just silent all the
can't
time.
talk.
You can't talk at all.
Yeah, but it helps.
It helps. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Lord is so gracious. And in the retreat, He really confirmed like, at least my desire and like that. Yes, like I want you to go to seminary. So I actually recently completed my application to seminary. I haven't done the interviews yet, so I'm still, please pray for me for
Pablo.
that.
Pray
Yeah.
for Pablo.
But yeah, I'm really excited, and it's all glory to God because He's the one that does everything. He's the one that gave me the graces to continue going and continue going back to Him, and He's the one that's calling me. So I'm really, really excited. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And what
I'm
about
just
you? What about you?
pause because I'm just so amazed, you guys. Like, I'm just so every time I hear Pablo
thank
talk,
you.
I'm like, oh my gosh, who would have thought? Like literally, who would have thought? Pablo would not have
I
thought.
would not have thought.
So
No,
that's
I
just
would
crazy. Yeah. So like I said, I had this moment back in what was it, November, December, November? Yeah, when I had my little consolation desolation thing, and I was like, oh shoot. Maybe this is not what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And then I went to Seek in January, and I did talk a little bit about it in the last episode. But I went to Seek, and I actually, I don't know. I feel like I felt called again. Like I was like, oh gosh. Like I guess he's not done with me after all. But I got to hear some talks from some of the Dominican sisters, and I got to meet some of them, and that was like I think the first time. Like no shade to everyone else. But I think that was the first time that I genuinely like felt excited to be like, don't cancel me. But like that I felt excited to be talking to some sisters. So like they're all nice. But like I was just so excited, and their charisma is education, and I'm a teacher, and I'm an educator. Yeah, I love educating. So yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, like I felt like the fire all over again, right? And so so I was like, okay, I was looking into it, came back home, I was like looking on the onlines, you know how it be. And I saw that they were having a discernment retreat actually like this weekend. So I mean, by the time this drops, I'll probably be in Michigan already. So that's exciting.
So if y'all hear it, please pray for your
yes, please pray for me. I'll be discerning with the Dominican sisters in the Michigan province or whatever. Ann Harbor. Yes, this weekend. So that's where I'm at in my discernment. But it's definitely, I don't know. I'm still, I don't know.
Being open.
Yeah.
Discernment is
always discerning.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's everything.
Yeah. We touched a lot of stuff.
We talked about a lot of things.
But I definitely recommend the biggest thing is to like look into St. Ignatius of Loyola's rules of discernment. He explains it a lot better than I did.
I love St. Ignatius of Loyola.
We love St. Ignatius.
we do.
And yeah, just continue trusting in God, and He is the one that's leading. Ultimately, it's God's will, not ours. And we're just following the example of what Jesus said before He bore the cross. So it's the same thing.
Absolutely, and definitely look into, just a side note, look into your archdiocesan office of vocations.
Oh yes,
because that's who I started my discernment with. He talked to Father Richard, so that's who he started his discernment with.
Person,
it's great. Definitely. I just would really want to emphasize that this is not something that you should do alone. Even if you want to, don't. You should not do it alone.
You can't do it alone. Yeah.
Obviously, you need God, but also you need the church.
Yeah, you need the church
community. So definitely look into it. Reach out to your vocations director at your archdiocese, whoever you have local to you. If you're in Galveston, Houston, highly recommend to go Father Richard McNeely. Yes, everyone in the office is so amazing. So definitely reach out, because they're there for you. They want to help you, and it's okay to not know anything. It's okay to not know where to start. Yeah. Hopefully this episode will help, but if not, So definitely keep us in your prayers, you guys.
Please pray for us.
Yes, and we'll be praying for y'all, of course. Yes. But yeah, that's all. So let's continue to learn together. Let's grow together. And of course, let's be saints together. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thank y'all.
If you're as excited for this podcast as I am, make sure you follow on whatever you're streaming it on right now. Also, subscribe on YouTube and follow on Instagram at Chisme del Cielo for any announcements, and so that you can DM me questions you might have so I can research it and get it on the pod. If you're feeling crazy, drop a review or a rating for the podcast, and please keep praying for me. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.